I never expected to be standing in her kitchen at midnight, my daughter asleep upstairs, when Elaine turned to me and whispered those words that changed everything. "I know what that look in your eyes means, James." My heart stopped. After months of hiding my feelings, had I finally given myself away? But before I could respond, her phone rang, her ex-husband calling at the worst possible moment. What she would tell me when she hung up would leave me questioning everything I thought I knew about my boss. The rain pounded against the windows as I stirred the pasta sauce, trying to focus on anything but the memory of how I'd ended up here. 3 days ago, my apartment building had flooded, leaving my 6-year-old daughter Lily and me with nowhere to go. When Elaine Matthews, my intimidating boss of 2 years, had offered her guest room, I'd hesitated. Not because I didn't trust her, but because I didn't trust myself around her. How could I explain that the single mother who'd hired me, promoted me, and now rescued me stirred feelings I'd buried since my wife's death? "Daddy, is Miss Elaine going to be my new mommy?" Lily had asked innocently that morning, sending coffee spraying across Elaine's pristine countertop. The look on Elaine's face, surprise melting into something softer, haunted me all day at the office. What if she'd seen through my awkward deflection? What if she knew? I'd always been the office comedian, quick with a joke to lighten tense meetings or deadline pressures. My sharp wit had become my shield, especially after losing Sarah. Humor was safer than vulnerability. But living under Elaine's roof was stripping away those defenses hour by hour. Elaine returned to the kitchen, her long silver blonde hair catching the dim light. At 45, she carried herself with a quiet confidence that made her more beautiful than the 20-somethings who often flirted with me at the office. Her elegant figure moved gracefully as she reached past me for a wine glass, her perfume momentarily overwhelming my senses. "He wants to meet tomorrow," she said, her voice tight. "After 3 years of silence, he suddenly needs to talk." I nodded, unsure what to say. Elaine rarely mentioned her ex-husband, the high-powered attorney who'd left her for his assistant. Office gossip painted him as the villain, but Elaine never spoke ill of him, especially not in front of their teenage son who split time between them. "You don't have to say anything profound, James," she said, a small smile playing at her lips. "That's what I've always appreciated about you. You know when silence is better than clever words. And here I thought you kept me around for my spreadsheet skills," I replied, falling back on humor. She laughed, the tension in her shoulders easing. "That too. Though your cooking might surpass both." We ate dinner at her kitchen island, talking about everything except the undercurrent between us. I told her about Lily's latest obsession with marine biology, and she shared stories about her son's college applications. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by moments when our eyes would meet a second too long before one of us looked away. "You know," she said, refilling our wine glasses, "when I first hired you, I thought you were overqualified. A finance whiz with your credentials taking a mid-level position? I assumed you'd be gone within 6 months." I needed stability for Lily, I admitted. After Sarah died, chasing bigger paychecks seemed pointless compared to being there for bedtime stories. Her eyes softened. I remember thinking, this man has his priorities straight. "That's rare, James," says the woman who built a department from scratch while raising a son alone. "We're quite the pair of responsible adults, aren't we?" she said, her tone shifting to something more playful. "Though I suspect there's more beneath that responsible exterior of yours." "Like what?" I asked, my mouth suddenly dry. "Like someone who remembers how to take risks. Someone who hasn't forgotten how to want things for himself." The air between us crackled with possibility. I leaned slightly forward, and she didn't move away. Then came the crash from upstairs, followed by Lily's frightened cry. I found my daughter tangled in unfamiliar bedsheets, disoriented and calling for her mother. As I held her, soothing away the nightmare, Elaine appeared in the doorway, concern etched across her face. Without a word, she sat on the edge of the bed and began humming a lullaby, her hand gently stroking Lily's hair. My daughter's breathing slowed, her small body relaxing against me. "My mom used to sing that to me," Elaine whispered once Lily had drifted back to sleep. "I sang it to Jason when he was little." In that moment, watching her with my daughter, something shifted inside me. This wasn't just attraction or loneliness. This was something deeper, more terrifying in its potential. The next morning brought chaos, Lily spilling orange juice on important documents, me scrambling to prepare for a major presentation, and Elaine fielding angry calls from clients. We moved around each other in a domestic dance that felt surprisingly natural. When she straightened my tie before we left for the office, her fingers lingering at my collar, I nearly confessed everything. "Not now," she murmured, as if reading my thoughts. "We have the Henderson meeting." The workday stretched endlessly. I watched her lead the meeting with her characteristic blend of authority and warmth, fielding difficult questions with grace. When Henderson directed his condescending remarks to me instead of her, despite her being the department head, I saw the familiar flash of frustration in her eyes. "Actually," I interjected, "that strategic direction came directly from Ms. Matthews. I'm just the numbers guy who confirmed her instincts were right, as usual." Her subtle nod of appreciation made the client's annoyance worthwhile. Later, as we prepared to leave the office, her ex-husband appeared, tall, expensively dressed, and radiating entitlement. The way he looked past me to focus entirely on Elaine made my jaw clench. "We need to talk now, Lainey," he said, using a nickname I'd never heard. "Jason called me about your little promotion. Moving to the London office? Were you planning to tell me before you took my son overseas?" I watched the color drain from Elaine's face. London? She hadn't mentioned any promotion, any move. The thought of her leaving sent a cold wave through me. "Richard, this isn't the place," she said quietly. "And I haven't accepted anything yet." "Yet," he repeated, his voice hard. "Just like you. Always putting career first." I stepped forward before I could stop myself. "I think Ms. Matthews asked to have this conversation elsewhere." His dismissive glance barely registered me. "And you are?" "James Parker. I work with Elaine." "Well, James Parker, this is a family matter." "Then act like family," I replied, keeping my voice level. "With respect." Elaine touched my arm gently. "It's okay, James. Can you pick up Lily and head home? I'll be there soon." Home. The word hung between us, laden with meaning neither of us was ready to acknowledge. I left reluctantly, feeling Richard's calculating gaze follow me out. In the elevator, I replayed Elaine's words in my head. London. A promotion she hadn't mentioned. Was she planning to leave without saying anything? Had I misread everything between us? At daycare, Lily greeted me with her usual exuberance, chattering about the art project they'd completed. "I made it for Miss Elaine," she explained, proudly displaying a watercolor painting of what appeared to be 3 stick figures holding hands. "That's you, me, and her. Like a family." My throat tightened. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. I'm sure she'll love it." "Where is she?" Lily asked, looking past me to the empty doorway. "She had to talk to someone important. She'll meet us at home." At her home, Lily corrected with the literal precision of a 6-year-old. "Not our real home." The innocent comment stung more than it should have. What was I doing, allowing my daughter to form attachments that might be severed if Elaine took this London position? What was I doing, forming those attachments myself? Back at Elaine's house, I tried to distract myself by starting dinner, but my mind kept circling back to the revelation about London. Had she been planning to tell me? Was that what she'd wanted to discuss before Richard's call interrupted us that first night? Lily sat at the kitchen counter, carefully placing her painting where Elaine would see it immediately. "Daddy, if we can't stay here anymore, will we still see Miss Elaine?" I measured my words carefully. Miss Elaine is my boss, so I'll still see her at work. And I'm sure she'd love to have you visit sometimes. But it won't be the same, Lily said with the devastating insight children sometimes possess. No, I admitted. It won't be the same. Hours later, I sat on her back porch, watching the stars emerge while Lily slept upstairs. When Elaine finally returned, the weariness in her steps told me everything I needed to know about her conversation with Richard. He's right, you know, she said, sinking into the chair beside me. I am putting my career first. Again. Is that so terrible? I asked. You've earned this opportunity. At what cost? Jason's in his final year of high school. Moving him now would be selfish. Or it could be an amazing experience for him. New country, new perspectives before college. She turned to look at me, her expression unreadable in the dim light. And what about you, James? What would you do if I left? The question hung in the air between us. What would I do? Return to my repaired apartment, continue working under a new boss, pretend these days hadn't changed something fundamental between us? I'd miss you, I said simply, the most honest words I'd spoken in years. Her hand found mine in the darkness. I've been so careful, she whispered. Office relationships are complicated enough without adding children to the equation. I'm your boss. There are policies, boundaries. I know, I agreed. It's complicated. Messy. Probably inadvisable. Completely inadvisable, she echoed, but her fingers tightened around mine. So we agree, I said, turning to face her fully. This is a terrible idea. The worst, she murmured, leaning closer. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative with the weight of all the reasons we shouldn't. Then something broke loose. Months of careful distance and professional restraint giving way to a connection that felt both new and somehow inevitable. When we finally pulled apart, her eyes searched mine. What are we doing, James? I don't know, I admitted. But I don't want to stop figuring it out. She rested her forehead against mine. London is a big decision. It is. I have 2 weeks to give them my answer. Then we have 2 weeks to see if this, I gestured between us, is worth exploring other options. The next morning, I woke before Elaine, watching the soft rise and fall of her chest as she slept. The intimacy of the moment struck me, not just the physical closeness, but the trust implicit in sleep. I'd forgotten what it felt like to wake up next to someone, to feel that quiet certainty of belonging. When her eyes fluttered open, the smile that spread across her face chased away any lingering doubts. "Good morning," she whispered. "Morning," I replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "No regrets?" "Not one," she said, leaning in to kiss me softly. "Though we should probably talk about how to handle this at work." Reality intruded on our moment of contentment. Office politics, HR policies, the potential perception of favoritism, all valid concerns we couldn't ignore. "I've been thinking about that," I said. "What if I transferred to another department? Finance has been trying to poach me for months." She frowned slightly. "Is that what you want?" "What I want is to be with you without complications. If that means changing departments, it seems a small price." "Let's not rush into anything," she cautioned. "We have time to figure this out." But time proved more elusive than we expected. That afternoon, Jason arrived home unexpectedly, having skipped his last class. He froze in the doorway when he saw me helping Lily with her homework at the kitchen table, a domestic scene that clearly surprised him. "Mom didn't mention you were still staying here," he said, his tone carefully neutral. "The repairs on our apartment are taking longer than expected," I explained, which wasn't entirely untrue. "Your mom's been very generous." Jason's eyes narrowed slightly, taking in the comfortable familiarity with which Lily and I occupied the space. Right. Generous. When Elaine returned from work, the tension was palpable. Jason had retreated to his room, emerging only to grab a snack and fix Elaine with a look that spoke volumes. "He knows something's changed," Elaine said quietly after he'd gone back upstairs. "I should talk to him. Do you want me to be there?" I offered. She shook her head. "This first conversation should be just us. He needs to know his feelings matter in this." I nodded, understanding but anxious. Jason's reaction could influence Elaine's decision about London, and about us. Their conversation lasted over an hour. I kept Lily occupied with a movie, straining to hear any raised voices from upstairs. When Elaine finally returned, her expression was complicated. "He's not thrilled," she admitted. "But he's not opposed either. His main concern is that this is happening too fast." "Is it?" I asked, suddenly uncertain. "Are we rushing this?" She sat beside me on the couch, taking my hand. "Maybe. Probably. But sometimes when you've spent years being cautious, taking a risk feels right." She squeezed my fingers. "He did say one thing that surprised me. He said he's noticed how much happier I've been this week." "Have you been happier?" Her smile was answer enough. The next days unfolded in a delicate balance of professional distance at work and growing closeness at home. Lily blossomed under Elaine's attention, while I discovered new layers to the woman I'd admired from a professional distance for years. Her dry humor matched mine, her strength had been hard-won through disappointments I was only beginning to understand, and her capacity for joy surprised me. One evening, as we prepared dinner together, she bumped my hip playfully. "You know what Jason asked me yesterday? If you were going to be his new stepdad." I nearly dropped the plate I was holding. "What did you tell him?" "The truth. That I don't know what we are yet, but that I haven't felt this way in a very long time." I set down the plate carefully. "And how do you feel?" "Scared," she admitted. "Hopeful. Like I'm standing on the edge of something that could be wonderful or terrible, with no way to know which until I jump." I took her hands in mine. We could jump together. The weekend brought another test when Richard arrived to pick up Jason for their regular visit. His eyes narrowed when he saw me coming down the stairs with a laundry basket. "Playing house already, Lainey?" he asked, his voice dripping with condescension. "That was always your weakness, rushing into things with your heart instead of your head." Before Elaine could respond, Jason appeared with his overnight bag. "Leave it, Dad," he said firmly. "Mom's allowed to be happy." The simple defense from her son brought tears to Elaine's eyes. After they left, she turned to me with a vulnerability I rarely saw at the office. "You know what scares me most about London," she confessed. "Not the move itself, but the thought that I'd be running away again. After Richard left, I threw myself into work because it was safer than risking my heart. What if this promotion is just another escape?" I considered her words carefully. "Only you can answer that. But from where I stand, you've never struck me as someone who runs from challenges." "Maybe not professional ones," she said softly. "Personal ones are another story." That night, as we lay in bed, Elaine shared stories of her marriage, how it had begun with such promise and gradually eroded under the weight of competing ambitions and unspoken resentments. "We stopped seeing each other," she explained. "Really seeing each other. By the end, we were just two people sharing a house and a child, but not a life." "Is that what you're afraid of happening again?" I asked. She nodded. "That, and failing Jason. He's already had one family fall apart. What if we try this and it doesn't work? What if Lily gets hurt in the process?" "There are no guarantees," I acknowledged. "But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is being brave enough to try anyway." The night before her decision was due, we sat at her kitchen table with spreadsheets, pros and cons lists, and half-empty wine glasses. London offered career advancement she'd worked toward for years. Staying meant potential stagnation professionally, but stability for Jason, and the chance for us to explore what was growing between us without an ocean in the way. "What would you do," she asked, "if our situations were reversed?" I considered carefully. I'd remember that careers can take many paths, but connections like this, I squeezed her hand, don't come along often. Says the man who's been hiding behind jokes and professional distance for 2 years, she teased. Maybe I needed a flood to wash away my defenses, I replied. We stayed up late into the night, weighing possibilities and sharing fears. I told her about my guilt. How for months after Sarah died, I'd wake up having dreamt of a future without her, and feel like I was betraying her memory. "Sarah loved you," Elaine said gently. "Do you really think she'd want you and Lily to be alone forever?" "No," I admitted. "She made me promise, actually. In the hospital, near the end. She made me promise I wouldn't use her as an excuse to stop living." "Wise woman," Elaine murmured. "She would have liked you," I said, surprising myself with the certainty of it. "She always valued authenticity above all else." Elaine's eyes glistened in the dim light. "I wish I could have known her." "In some ways, you do," I said. "Through Lily. Through the parts of me that Sarah helped shape." We fell silent, the weight of past loves and future possibilities hanging between us. Finally, Elaine spoke. "I've spent 3 years making decisions based on what's practical, what's expected. Maybe it's time I made one based on what feels right." The next morning, I woke to find her side of the bed empty and a note on her pillow, "Meeting with Regional Director. Decision time. Back by noon." The hours crawled by. Lily sensed my anxiety, growing clingy and irritable. By 11, I was pacing the living room, rehearsing what I would say regardless of her choice. I would support her decision. I would be happy for her opportunity. I would. The front door opened, and Elaine stood there, her expression unreadable. "Well?" I asked, my heart in my throat. "I turned it down," she said quietly. "Elaine, you didn't have to." "I proposed an alternative," she continued. "Quarterly trips to London to oversee the transition, with video conferences in between. And a promise to reconsider a permanent position after Jason graduates next year." "And they agreed?" A slow smile spread across her face. "They did. Turns out I'm valuable enough to compromise for." I crossed the room in 3 strides, lifting her into an embrace that said everything words couldn't. "There's more," she said when I set her down. "Your apartment manager called. The repairs are finished. You and Lily can move back tomorrow." Reality crashed back. Our bubble of domestic bliss had an expiration date. "Unless," she added, watching my face carefully, "you'd consider a different arrangement." "What kind of arrangement?" I asked, hardly daring to hope. "The kind where you don't leave. Where we figure this out, all 4 of us, together. Not because of a flood or convenience, but because we choose it." I thought of all the reasons to be cautious: our working relationship, our children, the newness of everything between us. Then I thought of Lily asking if Elaine could be her new mommy, and the look on Elaine's face that wasn't shock but longing. "I choose it," I said. "I choose you." That evening, we gathered Jason and Lily for a family meeting. Jason's initial skepticism melted when he saw how Lily climbed into Elaine's lap without hesitation, how naturally we moved around each other in the kitchen preparing dinner. "So you're officially together now?" he asked, his teenage nonchalance barely masking his interest. "We're figuring it out," Elaine replied honestly. "But yes, we want to try building something together. All of us." "Does this mean I get a little sister?" he asked, ruffling Lily's hair. It means we're becoming something new, I explained. Not replacing what we had before, but creating something different. Something that includes all the people we've loved and lost along the way. Jason nodded thoughtfully. Mom's been alone a long time, he said, surprising us with his perception. It's about time she had someone who sees how amazing she is. Elaine's eyes filled with tears as she reached for her son's hand. The transition wasn't seamless. There were awkward moments at the office as colleagues adjusted to our changed relationship. HR meetings where we established professional boundaries. Nights when Lily woke crying for her mother, or when Jason tested the new family dynamics with teenage defiance. But there were beautiful moments too. The first time Jason offered to help Lily with her science project. The evening Elaine and I slow danced in the kitchen after the kids were asleep, remembering who we were before we became parents, bosses, widowers, divorcees. 3 months after I officially moved in, Richard arrived to pick up Jason for the weekend and found me installing bookshelves in what had become our shared office. So it's serious then, he observed, his usual edge softened by something like resignation. It is, I confirmed, setting down my drill. He nodded slowly. Jason seems settled. Happier than I've seen him in a while. He's a great kid, I said. You and Elaine did something right there. A flicker of surprise crossed his face at the acknowledgement. She deserves to be happy, he said finally. I didn't always make that a priority. I plan to, I replied simply. When he left with Jason, something had shifted between us, not friendship, exactly, but a mutual recognition of the roles we played in the lives of people we cared about. 6 months later, as we moved the last of my and Lily's belongings into Elaine's house, our house now, I found her standing in what would become our shared office, holding a framed photo of Sarah. She'll always be part of your lives, Elaine said softly. I want Lily to grow up knowing her mother's story. I placed my hands on her shoulders, overwhelmed by this woman who understood that love doesn't diminish what came before, but builds upon it. You know, I said, that first night in your kitchen, when you said you knew what that look in my eyes meant. Yes? What did you see? She turned in my arms, her eyes meeting mine. I saw a man afraid to admit he was ready to live again. To love again. Her hand came up to touch my face. I saw myself, reflected back. On our 1-year anniversary, we took the children to the beach, the same shore where I'd scattered Sarah's ashes years before. As Jason taught Lily how to build a proper sandcastle, Elaine slipped her hand into mine. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if your apartment hadn't flooded? She asked. Sometimes, I admitted. But I think we would have found our way here eventually. Some connections are inevitable. Like fate, she teased, knowing my pragmatic nature. Like recognizing something true when you see it, I corrected. Even if it takes a while to admit it to yourself. That evening, after the children had gone to bed, I presented Elaine with a small velvet box. Inside wasn't a ring, we'd agreed that step could wait until Jason was settled in college, but a delicate silver compass. To remind you that no matter where your career takes you, London, New York, wherever, we'll find our way together. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she fastened the necklace. I never expected this, you know. After Richard left, I convinced myself that professional success was enough, that I didn't need the complication of loving someone again. And now? Now I know that the right kind of love doesn't complicate your life, it clarifies it. Makes the important things come into focus. Sometimes life's greatest storms bring unexpected gifts. For me, it took a flood to wash away the walls I'd built, leading me to the woman who would help me rebuild something stronger. A family forged not from obligation or circumstance, but from choice. A family that honors the past while embracing the future, that finds strength in vulnerability and courage in second chances. As I hold Elaine in my arms tonight, watching the moonlight play across her face, I'm grateful for every twist of fate that brought us here, even the flood that seemed like disaster but turned out to be the beginning of everything. If you found yourself moved by James and Elaine's journey, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories that explore the complex beauty of second chances and blended families. We'd love to know where you're watching from. Share your country in the comments below.